And what I love about your website is the homepage, because it says that as it is on the homepage. It says freedom, family, nation.
And I didn't even realize that there was a big gap in my life until I was in my 30s.
Actually, an excellent point, and which has blown my point out the water because
Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper have interfered with the judicial process.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest. It's a gentleman I've been following now for probably about 4 years, and it's David Kurten from the Heritage Party. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Nick. Really good to join you on the show.
Thank you for coming along. I've been on your radio show, and now you're popping along to my podcast. Um, let's jump straight into it. So you were a UKIP member. I liked you, and I liked Stephen Wolfe. I always thought one of you two should have been the leader after Farage went. It would have settled down all the craziness about how UKIP was a racist far-right party. So it's a shame you didn't become leader at that point. But you went on to set up your own party called the Heritage Party. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, it's funny to go think about mentioning the UKIP days. I mean, that was really good when I was in that. That's how I started off actively in politics back in 2012. And those were really good years, 2012 to 2016, obviously fighting for the referendum to come out of the EU. But then UKIP all fell apart, so, and imploded over the next 4 years or so. So that was a very sad thing. And I'd always hoped that I could, actually become the leader. I stood to be the leader in 2017. I didn't win, but I wanted to change it into a socially conservative party because I thought that's what the country needs now after UKIP had sort of fought for the referendum. There wasn't one in the country because the Conservatives are not conservative. I call them the fake Conservatives. And so in 2020, I set up the Heritage Party. And the first thing I did with that was stand to be the London mayor and to get back on the London Assembly. Obviously, I've been doing that for 5 years, from 2016 to 2021. Sadly, I didn't get back on as a London Assembly member, but I carried on with the Heritage Party. So it's a specifically socially conservative party. We are for protecting and defending our heritage, which includes our beautiful towns and cities, our countryside, and our culture. And what I've hated so much is what was called political correctness is now called wokery. But really is cultural Marxism, and it's completely destructive. The forces that go about trying to infiltrate every institution and invert and undermine the good principles that institutions and people had, and coerce and force people to affirm things that are completely ridiculous, like this whole gender ideology, for example. I mean, and that's just one of 20 different things. I mean, I often feel like I'm fighting 20 different battles all at the same time. But the Heritage Party's manifesto that I wrote has got positive principles to fight back against all of the globalist agenda, which is trying to destroy our nation at this time. So you can see our manifesto on our website, but it includes things like traditional family values, free speech and liberty, equality before the law, financial responsibility, low taxation, honoring the military covenant, and many, many other good things that people just thought were natural common sense 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah, I've been on your website several times, but I went on again today. And what I love about your website is the homepage, because it says that as it is on the homepage. It says freedom, family, nation. Who can disagree with those three words? I challenge anybody to disagree with those three words. Now, let's pick one of those words out to discuss, and that's the word family. Just like me, you were raised by a single mum, and I'm presuming some of your views come out of that. I didn't realize I missed having a father in the home until I was well in my 20s. And then I started realizing there was things I didn't know. There was the dreams and aspirations I didn't have because I didn't have someone telling me how to be a man, showing me how to be a man. I had to learn it all myself. And I wasted decades of my life. I could have been a lot further on in my life now if I would have had that support. Was that your experience? And if not, why is family so important?
No, Nick, I'm exactly the same as you. It's incredible you say that because yeah, it was the same for me. I was brought up with my mother. She did everything she could for me. She was wonderful, absolutely. But I didn't have a father, so I didn't have a man in the home teaching me how to be a man. And teaching me all those kind of masculine things. Like you, I had to figure things out on my own. I didn't even realize that there was a big gap in my life until I was in my 30s, actually, later than you, realizing that actually, what my experience was not normal. This is not how things should normally be. So, yeah, I've had to sort of figure out things as I've gone along, and now I'm 53 and, I wish I'd known some of the things now that I've figured out on my own back when I was 18 or 20 or 21, because I'd have probably gone a lot faster through life, if you like, made some money, made some more career advancements and all that kind of thing, But so, I very much support the traditional family, and a lot of that comes from my Christian faith as well. I believe that marriage is a man and a woman, and, outside Christianity, just from secular studies, show that that's the best model of a family for outcomes for children on every measure you can think of. I mean, children from a stable family with a married mother and father do better in education, better in employment, have more stable relationships, lower self-harm, lower drug abuse, lower depression, lower suicide. I mean, it's fantastic. And that's not to disparage anybody who finds themselves in a different situation just because of the unfortunate circumstances of life. But we need to honor that and affirm that as the best possible bedrock of society, which is going to bring up the healthiest, most wholesome, well-adjusted children. And if we stray from that, which we haven't done passively, this country's actively gone away from that over the last 50 years. It's going to cause all kinds of trouble. And we see that trouble now on multiple fronts. So we need to affirm the traditional family again.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent 2 decades working with young people, especially young lads, on the streets across Greater Manchester, in connection with the council, in connection with the police. And that was one of my big red flags, is if a kid told me he had no father at home. The second red flag was he's failing at education. And they would, if them two came together, it's like, we've got to work with this kid because he's on the road to nowhere here. But you're right, since post Second World War, it's not that we've ignored the family. Our governments, every government since the Second World War, has seemed to want to destroy the family unit as if that's the problem, as if the 100,000 years of our species living in tight family units didn't teach us any lessons. And suddenly we get a bit of Marxism and postmodernism, and we think we know better than 100,000 years of history and we can rewrite everything. And our society shows we can't. Crime's out of control. 80% of prisoners come from single parent households. Our failing education, our failing communities, the destruction of the family, and 20% of women are on antidepressants. Men are killing themselves. And it's like, none of this is working, is it?
No, no, you're absolutely right. It's dreadful, and it's not. It's insane. To go away from what has naturally been the case for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and thinking that suddenly we're going to change everything and create this brave new world underpinned by cultural Marxist ideology, which is destroying everything. And this is specifically in the Communist Manifesto written by Marx and supported by Engels in 1848, which is when people follow this, it leads to chaos and destruction because there's four things that the Communist Manifesto says need to be eradicated so that we can have this wonderful new world of social justice, which never comes into being. They want to abolish the family, the nation, property, and Christianity. Those four things. We get rid of one of them, it causes problems. We get rid of all four, it's absolute chaos and disaster. But then you have people coming in saying, as we have done over the last 4 years, we're going to build back better. We're going to build this brave new world envisioned by Klaus Schwab, where you will own nothing and be happy, which is a complete inversion because no one's going to own anything, of course, but no one's going to be happy either because everything that gives us meaning and purpose and stability and connection has been destroyed. You know, you destroy the family, you've got no connection to your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your future, your past. You destroy the nation, you've got no connection to the people around you. You destroy the idea of private property and say that everything's going to be owned by the state. Well, you have no stake in anything in society. You're basically a serf with no rights, no freedom, no power. And then, of course, Christianity is our faith. And, you know, if you adhere to the principles of Christianity, countries that have done that through 2,000 years have done very, very well. And countries that haven't, we see, have not done so well. And we see clearly the West is abandoning Christianity and Christian principles, and we're going down the tubes. So, you know, I would say along with freedom, family, nation, we need to get back to our Christian heritage as well, which underpins everything and gives us the principles, the value system, which holds everything together.
I would like to force I mean, this sounds a bit dictatorial, but I'd like to force everybody in the country at some point in their life to work for government. Because once you've worked for government, you've been inoculated for the Marxist virus. Because I spent a decade working for Manchester Council. Once you've done that, you realise you want the council and the government doing nothing for you. It's pure incompetence. It's pure politics. They do nothing correctly. They waste money. And once you've worked for government, it's like, I don't want them anywhere in my life because I can do better than that. So if we talk about government,
Sorry, I'll just come in on that, Nick. I mean, I totally agree with you, but I think the problem is that there are actually millions of people who work for government and are very, very comfortable because they don't do hardly anything. They don't have to perform, but then they get a nice salary check every month. Their pay goes up higher than it does in the private sector, and they get a nice pension for basically swanning around on their backsides doing nothing of value every day, and that is a big problem.
that's actually an excellent point, and which has blown my point out the water because I worked with hundreds of people in the council who thought they were doing a great job, who thought the world would end if they weren't doing their job of pushing papers. So I'll edit that out of what I just said there because it made no sense. But if we're talking about government, obviously we've got a Labour government at the moment, Keir Starmer, and I'm not one of these people who blame Keir Starmer and Labour for everything going wrong at the moment. This has been going on for decades. If I blamed anyone at the moment, it's 14 years of Tory rule. They did so much damage by not doing anything. What's your take at the moment on the Labour Keir Starmer government?
Well, I mean, my take is this: there's no difference between the fake Conservative Party but what's really a fake Labour Party. And the Conservatives aren't conservative. Labour have got nothing to do with the labouring man or woman anymore. I mean, they're following the woke agenda. They're more, you know, adherent to and allegiant to BlackRock and the big globalist hedge funds and corporations and the World Economic Forum than caring about the working people. And the Conservatives are destroying. They've been destroying our nation actively with mass immigration and with the, you know, running down the economy and hollowing the economy out, and also doing completely the wrong thing in the lockdown COVID era, you know, and destroying education, mental health, businesses in that time. And we're now paying the price for that now. So I don't see them as any different, you know, as many people have quipped, they're two cheeks of the same backside, basically. And the election was just a baton handover from the blue section of the Uniparty to the red section of the Uniparty. That's how I see it. But the red section is actually accelerating the destruction and the demolition of society and the economy, which has been going on for 14 years under the fake Conservatives, and then 13 years under fake labor. Before that, now it's come back to fake labor. They're increasing what's going on. And, all the things that we've seen in just 5 months have been absolutely disastrous. I mean, they're even, making life horrendous for their base. I mean, they're attacking pensioners, they're attacking small businesses, and through the attack on small businesses through tax, workers are going to suffer. The war on farms that's going on, which means that people that provide our food are going to have to sell their farms when they inherit it, or sell half of their farms just to pay inheritance tax, is absolutely horrendous. So, this is a destruction of society and the economy that has been going on since Blair took office in 1997. The program continues, and we need to change it.
I agree. I think the worst thing this Labour government have done in the 5 months they've been in power is they've created political prisoners. We have people locked in our jails for tweeting, for putting things on Facebook. I'm not talking about the idiots who are on the streets who threw bricks at police and set fire to hotels. I'm for law and order. People like that need to be punished because we can't go down that road. But sat at home, angry, frustrated, maybe had a drink, and you're tweeting something. I'm not saying you shouldn't be punished for that. That's a different argument. But caught in jail, 3 years in jail. These are political prisoners.
Well, you're absolutely right that they're political prisoners, because Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper have interfered with the judicial process by saying that anyone who's arrested, who's said anything on social media or has been involved in what they call riots, will be held on remand, when normally people wouldn't be held on remand. So you've got the Prime Minister and politicians interfering with the normal judicial process. So you're absolutely right. They're political prisoners. And it's absolutely abhorrent that that's happening in this country. Lucy Connolly is probably the one that we know most most about, because she was the wife of a Conservative councillor in Northamptonshire and said something that wasn't very pleasant, but it wasn't inciting violence. And she deleted it after 2 hours. She just had a post up for 2 hours, and now she's in prison for 32 months. I mean, that is absolutely horrendous. That this could be happening. There's no way that is, anything apart from revenge against someone for some, nefarious reason.
A couple of years ago, if this would have happened in any other country in the world, our government would have been shouting about it and saying this is unacceptable. And roll on a couple of years, we're doing it. Absolutely crazy. But political prisoners, I think, is where this government has crossed the line. Let's jump back to families on our last point. So this country is not perfect. It never has been perfect. And we've had many problems here, but we've solved many of them, such as we used to have acid attacks in the Victorian era. We had issues with knife crime with the Teddy Boys and the Rockers. There's been many things we've had to solve in this country. But suddenly, the problems have all come back because we've imported them. And a problem we've imported recently is cousin marriage. And for people who say, well, you can marry who you want, it's not your sister, but you can marry who you want. Well, the issue is it's costing our NHS a fortune because 50% of severely disabled babies are born to Pakistani community who are cousin marriage related. A third of all genetic babies that are born are cousin marriage, Pakistani heritage. Is it any of our business? We both support family. We want people to be married and have children. Am I wrong in thinking this is a step too far and we need to support the Pakistani community for making these mistakes?
Well, the thing is, it's never been illegal up to now, and it's never really been an issue that people have spoken about too much. But all of a sudden, this is a big media story this week because someone's introduced a question in the House of Commons about it. I think that it probably is the right thing to do because obviously the science says that if you have a child out of a cousin marriage, then that child is more likely to be, mentally impaired, than otherwise and have physical disabilities. So I think this is the right thing to do now, for everybody. And yes, you're correct. It's mostly, or quite a significant number, are in the Pakistani community. And if there hadn't been mass immigration from Pakistan and other countries into the UK over the last 60 or 70 years, then this wouldn't be an issue now. But it is an issue now. And, I don't know the exact number of children that are, physically and mentally impaired because they've been born because of cousins, marrying and having children together. But, if it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know. But I mean, this is a lot of people. And, for the sake of the next generation, I think we need to actually, step in now and make a law. But banning marriage isn't necessarily going to stop it, because they can still get together and have children. But that needs to be, the whole issue needs to be addressed. And yeah, so I think this is the right thing to be trying to do at this time.
Yeah. Another point, I wrote an article about this last month, but another point on cousin marriage that no one is really talking about, but we are talking about the disabled children, which is a good point. But another serious point is when we wonder why certain communities don't integrate into this country and live alone and live separate. Part of it is because of cousin marriage. What that does is that manages to keep families tighter and tighter together. They don't allow outsiders into those family structures. It's only by inviting outsiders through marriage into your family that new ideas and new ways of looking at the world and new ideas of integrating into the larger society can happen. But when it's just within your family all the time, that keeps those close bonds, which is a benefit of that small family unit. It keeps those bonds tighter and tighter, and everybody outside that is seen as a foreigner, is seen as the other, and it's that's part of the reason why certain communities are not integrating into this country.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, immigration is far, far too high at the moment. Clearly, now we have net immigration of 700,000 approximately. We have gross immigration of 1.2 million a year, and 500,000 leaving. So that gives you the net figure. But even before then, it was too high. And, I take the view that immigration can be good if it is people who are coming to do jobs where there are scarce skills or to set up businesses. But we shouldn't be taking millions and millions of people who essentially are doing non-skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled jobs or no jobs at all, just living in a family where there's, a lot of them are claiming benefits or multiple benefits and doing benefit fraud. And there's a lot of that going on. Those people shouldn't be in the country. And I advocate for us training our own British young people with the skills they need to do the jobs that need to be done in this country. So we don't need immigration at all, or very little of it. So, there is a problem here, because you have some people who do it very well. They come because they're working and they work hard and they pay taxes. And then you have other people coming en masse, setting up communities that are just, a law unto themselves. And that is a big problem. We have to stop it and close the gates to any more people like that coming in. And then ultimately over the years, either, remigrate, deport people who are in the country illegally, but those people who are here legally in those situations, they shouldn't be, but they've been given legal passage and right to remain. We need to prize these people open, these communities open, and make sure that they do integrate, because this is England and Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. This is not Pakistan. If you come to the country, when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When you're in England, you do as the English do. And if people are not willing to do that, then they shouldn't be here.
Completely agree. And that's a perfect place to end. I personally would close the borders for something like a decade, because we need to integrate the people who are here legally, and we need to deport the people here who are here illegally. We've got a huge problem, many problems. I can't see any government on the horizon who's going to tackle any of these problems. You've got 30 seconds. Can you see anything coming down the line that's going to tackle these problems?
Well, the Heritage Party will. We got the manifesto, the policies and principles to do this. So please come and join us on heritageparty.org and come and vote as well. Use your vote. Don't sit at home and just not vote. And then, because if you do, then we're going to get Labour or the fake Conservatives in. And the next set of elections is on the 1st of May 2025. We got lots of local elections in English county councils, 2,240 council seats up for election. Please come and join us in the Heritage Party and stand for those seats and make a difference in your local councils, and then we can springboard into making a difference in the national government in Westminster as well.
I second that message. If you're watching this and you're fed up, go onto the Heritage Party website, see what they're about. You will like it, guaranteed. Contact them and stand in your local area, the local council. It doesn't cost anything anymore now to stand as a councillor. It's free. You have to put a deposit down. And you may not win, but you know what? At least you did something. At least you were contributing to saving this country. Doing nothing and moaning is not an option anymore now. Do something. Have a look at the Heritage Party. Cheers, David, for coming along, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.